which we call the Twilight Zone.
See it occur, and you look at Steph and Clay, and even Draymond with his lack of
Has it 2 in a row. 7 points for him. The twirling Doncic. Melting into the defense. The front carry. Strikes. Swing, fly ball. Well hit left center. Ronald Acuna has home. Rookie rushing record for the Steelers.
Look, he came into this game averaging 3.67 yards per carry. 42nd out of 49 qualified rushers.
Freeze to begin the third quarter. It has been incredible. Here he comes again. Oh, goodness. And the Greek basketball god. And he was a great guy to teach because
What is up, Rallytown fam? Good evening. Welcome to the show. Todd, we talking Reds baseball tonight. How are you, sir?
Let's get it. Baseball season's here, baby.
You're looking fucking huge tonight. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cass, thanks for popping in and liking the video, sir.
Bro, I started. So I've been working on this little powerlifting thing for a minute now. Not really plateaued pretty aggressively over the last month. Injured myself a little bit, so I thought the reasonable thing would be to look up some new workouts, and I got on Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Olympia workout that he used to do.
Oh boy! And
I hurt everywhere.
I can imagine.
It is very high volume. By the time it takes me 2 hours almost to finish it, so I gotta get up at 4 a.m. to go do this damn thing, and my chest feels like if I make a sudden movement, my chest feels like I'm about to just rip open. It feels great, very satisfying.
Yeah, get the pump, baby.
Well, I'm not on any juice, so I'm not going to get the Arnold look per se, but I'll take the workout. Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you meant just the monster chest that Schwarzenegger had in his prime.
I was just talking about the pump, Just feeling
That's
huge.
right.
Right after you haven't worked out in 3 years and you go work out and your muscles just feel super tight and you're like, God, I'm jacked.
Yeah, you're a monster. You're a monster for 90 minutes, and then you sit down for a half hour and you get back up and everything's locked up.
Yeah, and then you're 108 years old and ready to just end it.
That's right.
But no, we got some good stuff to talk to you tonight. We got Reds spring training, a lot of good stuff to bring you. It's definitely gonna be an issue. We got World Baseball Classic. We'll finish it up with a little bit of the NFL free agency, which has been absolutely popping off this year. It's been pretty wild around the league. A lot of good stuff.
Ted, thanks for liking the stream, brother.
Justin coming to the comments said, watching live on my Echo show. My son has my phone, but took it to comment. 1, stop making your fans wait. 2, love the intro. 3, can't wait to hear Todd's words of wisdom today.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
I am looking forward to it just as much as you are. I was actually talking to my dad and my brother about this, and I was just like, every time I come on here, I'm a little intimidated when I'm on here with you, especially when we're talking baseball, because you're so knowledgeable about it. And I just try to do my best to hold my own.
I appreciate you, man. You if anything, I'll compare what we do here sometimes to just having the greatest batting practice partner you can have. You're just lofting me fastballs right down the middle. You're working on my game all the time, and you just lay me up to get really in depth, or you'll ask me a follow-up question that takes me down a completely different road or changes my train of thought. So we're here to do this shit together, man. I'm excited to. As not excited as I am to watch the Reds this year, I'm actually really excited to talk about them a little bit and share again, this is purely my opinion on things. There are some facts I'm going to throw in there here and there, but this is purely my opinion on the future of things and really the present too. But Corey's absolutely right. Bobby is an absolute fucking unit as a host. OG dude's been laying up fucking softballs for me for 2 years now. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you building my my self-esteem and doing this thing, dude. I wouldn't be able to get on here and do it without you. Get me where I need to get to. But dude, I'm so stoked to talk about the Reds. I think There's a lot of people that have a lot of questions, dude. Look, there's a lot of really broad stroke questions that people have. So I'll start with the first one: is what's this year's plan? And
I do have a pretty strong hat game. I'm still, I mean, my inventory is still light in my opinion, but we're working on it. And my hairline does prove that my hat game is pretty strong. It is running away at a mile a minute.
Hat game stronger, hairline weaker. That's how you end up shaving your head. That's how I got here.
I am not too many years away from that. Let's get into it, man. The Reds, they're taking an interesting approach this year. It's going to be kind of a ragtag group, a lot of young talent, a lot of veteran talent. There's not a lot of structure, in my opinion, to the way that the team's being, put together this year. Just kind of give me your biggest takeaways so far. It's from what you watched in spring training.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people automatically watch guys like Ellie De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand and think, get these guys on the roster today. Play today. They need to start playing now.
A great spring so far.
Yeah, Encarnacion Strand to me is the MVP of spring training for baseball. Was hitting damn near 600 through the first 5 games. Is cooled off a little. Is below 400 now. When I say cooled off,
well, they just sent him down. They sent him down.
Yeah, yep. So they announced that he's going to be in minor league camp effective today. Yesterday, and there were a lot of people, Ellie De La Cruz too, that were very upset by this news. I mean, fuming. If you follow Lance McAllister on Facebook, and he does an excellent job of reporting this news in real time and allowing people to use his platform to share their opinion. And people felt very strongly about the Reds demoting Christian Encarnacion Strand.
Well, I've got his stats here. In the spring training so far, he's got 26 at bats, 15 hits. 7 of those hits are extra base hits. He's got 13 RBIs and 4 home runs, and batting .577, leading all categories across all spring training in both leagues.
Yep. And you know what the average level of pitcher that he faced through spring training was?
No.
AA.
Yeah. So
he faced
what he was competing against last year when he had 200 plus at bats. He hit 32 homers and knocked in 100.
Yeah. So look, here's the thing. So if you don't know where he came from the Tyler Mahle trade to the Twins, right? This was a part of that. Spencer Steer, the Reds opening day third baseman, was a part of that trade. And obviously, Sonny Gray was traded to the Twins before Tyler Mahle, and we got Petty and a trade for him, a young prospect who probably is 2 to 3 years away. But Christian Encarnacion Strand is a home run machine.
Yes.
And the unique thing, the unique thing about him as a hitter is that he has a very patient approach for being a power hitter, which it's not, those aren't two things that usually kind of coincide together, but he's pretty meticulous. He has a good idea of the strike zone, and he's a fastball hitter, right? So, and high A ball and double A ball, he got most of his at bat, spent most of his time.
Todd, I don't know if you're cutting out with that last like 10 to 15 seconds. I didn't hear it. I don't know if it didn't come through on the chat. Okay. So if you want to repeat yourself.
Yeah, so I just said that Encarnacion Strand is a fastball hitter, and at the high A level and at the double A level, fastballs are a little bit more abundant. There's less pitchers who know how to utilize a 3 to 5 pitch command and throw all of those for strikes and to throw a hitter off balance. So he takes the opportunity to hit fastballs. He capitalizes on fastballs, and it would be a great opportunity for him this year to learn how to utilize that power on off-speed pitches as well as he gets into double A, probably ends up in triple A at some point in time this year. I'm assuming I think we see him in the September call-ups. But he's a guy that needs a year to cook in the Reds farm system because they got to figure out where they're going to put him, because he's not even their top prospect, right? The guy that's the top prospect is Ellie De La Cruz, who plays the same position as he does, right? He's a third baseman, shortstop. Encarnacion Strand is a third baseman, first baseman. And then you have Noelvi Marte, who you got through a Mets trade between and Tyler Naquin. And he's a third baseman, shortstop. And he's had a good spring. And he's 20 years old, right? So all these young guys who have this plus hitting, this ability to hit for power. And, Encarnacion Strand really needs to learn how to find a glove. I think he ends up being a first baseman for the Reds in the long run. Yeah. He's a below average.
I think he's Votto's replacement.
Yeah, he's plus arm, below average fielding. So that usually doesn't equate well to being a third baseman at the major league level. You usually end up playing first base or DHing. Insert Miguel Cabrera. So he needs to learn where he's going to field too, where he's going to play in the field, right? So everybody was super upset about Encarnacion Strand not making the Reds roster. You have to be patient. This guy has to get at bats. He has to put together a 400 at bat season at the minor league level. Yeah. To see if he has all of the tangibles, right? Because
he's the guy you want to see him be consistent throughout an entire. You want to see if he's got the legs to make it 162 games, or in the minor league system, a little bit less. But I mean, there's no denying it. And I know there's a lot of people that were upset that this man got sent down, and I think it has a little bit to do, with cash as well. I mean, you keep him down there. You keep him down there a little bit longer. You give him another year, and then that way he's a September call up, and then he can be a rookie next year, and save you some cash flow in the near future. And you actually get to retain him for a few more seasons than you would if you brought him up on the roster to start this season, when we don't have a lot of positive things going on with the outlook. So, the Reds are kind of thinking they're just going to, save him and not waste him this season, and kind of bring him in next season. Or, I would. There's no way he doesn't make the roster next season with the way that he's playing if he continues that. But September call up is my projection for him as well.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Service time is key here. This is the same reason why Ellie De La Cruz won't touch Great American Ballpark until July.
Yeah,
because you have to pay these guys a major league contract. And if we've seen anything from the Reds this offseason, is that they are not spending money. They're not spending money. You know who the third highest player is for the Reds right now?
Me.
Ken Griffey Jr. I'm serious.
So sad.
I'm serious. Ken Griffey Jr. is the third highest player, and it's obviously deferred payment, whatever you want to call it. Right. But Joey Votto is making $22 million. Will Myers is making $6 million. Ken Griffey Jr. makes about $4 million, and then Kevin Newman is fourth at less than $3 million this year. Everybody else makes 2.5 or less down to the.
Did you see Ken Griffey Jr. Was talking about making a comeback in the 2020? What is it? What's
2026?
2026 World Baseball Classic.
Can you imagine him being your hitting coach, though? Imagine how thankful guys like Mike Trout are, and like all these guys that are playing for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, and Ken Griffey Jr. is your hitting coach.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, maybe if the only other two people I could imagine that would maybe be better would be Tony Gwynn or Ichiro.
Yeah. And, it's the same even for Puerto Rico too, right? The manager for Puerto Rico in this World Baseball Classic, Yadier Molina. That's a pretty fucking cool thing to do if you're Puerto Rican. That's the best catcher of your country to ever play the game, and now he's managing you to support your nation in an international event. That's pretty cool.
I mean, he's definitely the best catcher of our upbringing. I don't think it's close.
No,
but I hate saying it because he's a Cardinal, but
it's hard to put the sentence together.
We've talked about it before, but it sucks to say, but yeah, he's a legend. And that's awesome. But yeah, Ken Griffey Jr. being your hitting coach, I mean, it's like having, I don't know, it's like having Steph Curry coach you on threes.
Sure. Yeah, it's like having Joe Montana be your quarterback coach or whatever, or Brett Favre be your quarterback coach. Like somebody
not Brett Favre. Fuck Brett Favre. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, he sucks. That's a bad example of as a role model. But obviously someone who Ken Griffey Jr.'s swing is a brand, so you don't get to say that very often. There's only three non-professional affiliated logoed athletes in the world, so pretty special to be able to say that you're one of those three. But man, he's a great guy to listen to too. If you don't listen to the Pivot, listen to the Pivot episode where Ken Griffey Jr. is on there.
I need to watch that. I'll listen to it on the drive up tomorrow.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy to listen to because he's very blissfully ignorant on how humble he is about his life. And I don't know if it's a character that he plays or if he's like really this way, but he's very modest about being what he is. And that's financially too, right? Like when he did that interview with the Pivot, he flew in because he's a pilot. And he said he flies more than he drives because it actually is cheaper for him to fly than to drive. That's what he says.
Cheaper to fly than to drive.
Yeah.
Well, he must own his own plane, obviously.
Yeah. He's a pilot. He has his own plane. He's a $4 million plane.
So he bought the plane, and now it's probably, what it would take for him to drive to Chicago. It would be less in jet fuel to get from.
Yeah.
Where does he live?
He lives in Florida now. He lives somewhere in that area.
So he lives in Florida.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you really have to think about it. If you're depending on what kind of car you have, flying from Florida to Ohio, that's what, a 3.5 hour flight?
Yeah.
Roughly
17 hours in the car.
17 hours in the car, and you're filling up 4 times.
Yeah.
If you got a big car, it's probably going to be like $500-600.
Yeah.
Maybe it's $200 to fill up maybe it's $200 to fill up the plane and fly.
He could fill up a plane for $1,800, and he said he can get 5 flights out of it. That's what he said.
That's a steal.
He flies 30 times a year.
He flies 30 times. So he flies 30 times a year and you get 18. Let's do the math here. Let's think about it. So basically, he's filling up 6 times at $1,800. So that's 60, and then 6 times 8 is 48. So he's spending $108,000 in fuel over the course of a year.
Yeah, if you got it like that, you just do it that way, right? Rather than buying a plane ticket to go everywhere. Because
it's convenient.
He's not flying coach, y'all. He's fucking flying first class. And if he's flying his family, that's 5 to 6 tickets, depending on if his oldest son is with him or not.
Justin, appreciate stealing your wife's phone to come in. No one mentioned Bonds as a hitting coach. Gwynn, then Bonds are my number 1 and 2. I do see the Ichiro angle, though.
Bonds has had his opportunity to be a hitting coach, and he struggled at the major league level. That's an interesting thing. Here's the thing: is that if I'm looking straight tangibles of Barry Bonds, he has the fastest hands and the quickest swing in the history of the game. Pre-steroid era, pre-long ball era for him when he was on Pittsburgh, he was unbelievable. He
ran that 31-inch bat, and that was basically like a 30-ounce wood bat, and just got it through the zone quickly and just put barrel on ball and sent him to the moon. He didn't need the steroids to break the home run record because he had the power before then. It was just overkill at that point.
Yeah. If he would have not decided to go that route, he wouldn't have had the home run record, but he would have probably still had 600 home runs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He would be.
I still believe he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but that's that's not for you and I to decide.
No, that's an interesting comment, though, Justin. He's too intelligent to teach hitting. I think there's 2 parts to that. I think you're right. I think he understands the game at a different level, and a lot of times the best players don't translate to good coaches because they see things so much differently than everyone else.
That's a great point.
But I think the thing that coincides with that is that when you are that talented, you don't have the patience to deal with people that don't meet your level, right? When you are the best person to do it, and then you're trying to teach people how to be their best as well, and they don't see their best the same way that you see their best, it can be really frustrating, right? It's like management 101. You bring somebody, you hire somebody in, you think that they're going to be excellent, and they have all the tangible things to be a great employee, but maybe their work ethic kind of sucks, or they don't show up to work on time, or they don't want to learn the next step, and you get really frustrated with them because you see it and they don't. I think Barry Bonds is kind of the same way as a hitting coach.
I call this the Kobe Bryant syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fact that, or like the Michael Jordan or the Barry Bonds, or like the guys that are so specialized in their craft, they are so competitive. They will do whatever it takes to be the best at what they do. And there's like 99% of the population is not built that way.
Yeah.
J.
Thank you,
Rob,
man.
we definitely appreciate that comment, man. I even tell Todd he needs to be on a larger platform. We're trying to get him there, but
The Bengals
yeah.
just signed a safety. I'm gonna sleep a little bit better tonight. I feel better.
Oh, they replaced Jesse Bates, who just went to Atlanta for a
They
fuck ton of money,
replaced Von Bell actually. So they signed Nick Scott from the Rams, or they're getting ready to sign Nick Scott from the Rams. It's not finalized
I read about
yet.
that today. I didn't know if that was final or not.
Ari just tweeted it about 52 seconds ago.
52
So
seconds.
it's like put it in the books.
It's that Kobe Bryant syndrome where it's like, I'm a fucking asshole because I know people don't work as hard as I do. Like, I'll never forget that story I listened to where he's like, all right, you guys want to go out? We'll go out. And they went out and partied. And then Kobe went knocking on their door at 4 a.m. saying, hey, motherfucker, let's go up and practice.
Yeah.
Like, I did what you want to do. Now you're coming to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And like, nobody was about it. And it's like, it's that same thing where it's like, there's not a lot of people that are built that way. And that's why they can't really coach. And I don't think Kobe would have been a good coach. Because he would have fucking drove his players insane.
Yeah,
but
there are certain people that there are people within the sport that play the sport so exceptionally well that it doesn't translate to coaching. Most of the time let's take baseball, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of former players that become head coaches are often catchers, right? Yeah. They're catchers, or they are utility players, like Gabe Kapler, for example. He was a utility outfielder, never really panned out to be, a wild success, or oh my gosh, I just lost his last name. He played for Tampa Bay, and then he's a coach for the Twins. It'll come to me in a second. But Matheny, Osmus, Girardi, those guys have success as a coach. Because a catcher they kind of understand a little bit more of the spectrum. Rocco Baldelli, that's his name. Rocco Baldelli.
Looking it up.
But a lot of those guys turn into coaches because they are intuitive to the game, right? And Mike Matheny is the best example of this. Mike Matheny, when he played, to me he was the best defensive catcher, and then there was everyone else. Right. He was the first guy to really challenge people on pop time. He was the first guy to throw behind runners at first base consistently. There weren't a lot of guys that were doing that before he was doing that in the mid-90s. And then once he became a manager, who did he get the opportunity to coach? He coached Yadier Molina. And you see that
one of the greatest catchers of all time.
You see that finished product, right? Like you get to see that on field. So
first ballot, no question.
Yeah. So I think the best players often just don't have that ability. I do think Ichiro will end up. I mean, he's coaching with the Marlins organization right now. He's a part of that organization. I don't know what the future looks like for him in terms of roles, but I think that he's still a student of the game and the way that he approaches baseball too. He was somebody that never seemed to be satisfied with where he got in his levels of the game. I mean, he has over 5,000 career hits. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, I mean, if you combine his Japan and his MLB stats, he's
over 5,000
hitter out of the water. And,
he's over 5,000.
And for anybody to sit here and say that he wouldn't have smashed Pete Rose's record, if somebody can sit here and literally tell me that wouldn't have happened if he played his entire career in the major leagues, I'd tell you you're fucking wrong.
He spent a decade in Japan.
He came over here after 10 years of playing baseball at the major league level in Japan, and then still came close. Hitting 200.
Got 3,000 hits.
He had 200 hits a season for, what was it, 10 or 15 straight seasons? Whatever it was.
It was over 240, over 220 hits for 8 over 200 for like 10 or 12.
Yeah, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You ask any player to do that now, that's never happening.
No, there's no way.
Yeah,
you just can't. That sustainable success at the major league level is so far in between now.
Yeah, well, I saw a stat the other day where it was, it had something to do with strikeouts, and it was about Tony Gwynn, because Tony Gwynn just never struck out.
Sure.
And it was like these two players struck out, 100 times last season, and Tony Gwynn struck out 128 times over a decade.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I mean, hitting's just not what it used to be. But
no. Sorry, the stat is he hit over 200 hits 10 years in a row, his first 10 years in the league. Absurd. And of those 10 years, six of them he had over 220, or sorry, 5 of them he had over 215 hits. And one of them he had and one of those seasons he had 262 hits.
That's unbelievable, dude.
And 762 plate appearances. He had 262 hits and only struck out 63 times. It's wild.
Good for him, man. Wow. All right, well, let's kind of circle back here. Let's get back on topic here. We went on like a what is it? A 20-minute tangent about just random shit. So give me your top 3 performances of the Red spring training thus far. Moving into the regular season, like who do we need to be looking out for?
So if we're looking for players, so I'll kind of give you the 3 prospects that I think you watch going into the season, because I think the opening day roster and the prospects we're going to talk about, they don't coincide really. So we talked about Christian Encarnacion Strand. I think he's somebody that we'll definitely keep a close eye on this year too on the minor league level. Andrew Abbott represented the Reds last year in the Futures game, left-handed pitcher. Was also sent down to minor league camp. From the University of Virginia, is not going to wow you with. He's a very Greg Maddux style pitcher. He's a high 80s, low 90s pitcher, but he has a 5-pitch mix. He throws all 5 for strikes, has outstanding command, is an innings eater too, which is a weird thing to say in today's game. That's a hard thing to.
Now, the Reds are going to be missing that season too. So
yeah, and then really the last guy, man, I think that we need to look out for is Matt McLean, first-round pick from the 2021 draft out of UCLA, a middle infielder, plus hitting, plus fielding. When the Reds just decide what they're going to do with Jonathan India, because that's going to be a decision they're going to have to make this year. He's either going to replace Jonathan India at second base, or Jonathan India is going to become a third baseman and he's going to become the everyday second baseman, or they might trade him too, because he's a guy. My comp to him as a hitter is Jeff Kent, right? If you look at Jeff Kent's time when he was like in San Francisco and the end of Los Angeles era where he hit like 290 and had like 20 and 90.
Yeah, he's a hype man.
This is exactly what Matt McLean is. He will do the same thing for you. Has plus power for being a little guy. He's like 5'9", 5'10", and like a super smooth glove. He got drafted in the first round twice. Got drafted in the first round out of high school, and then drafted by the Reds in the first round again after 3 years at UCLA. So he has all the stuff to be a real legitimate middle infielder at the major league level. But yeah, those are my 3. If I'm talking prospects for the Reds, I don't think there's really a lot to talk about in terms of spring training for the Reds in terms of their active roster, unfortunately, because we haven't really seen a lot of these guys put a lot of innings together yet. You know, there's still a lot of there's a lot of guys getting 1 or 2 ABs and then they're sitting out, or, you know, whatever the circumstances may be. But I will say Jake Fraley has had a really good spring training. Will likely be the everyday left fielder.
Yeah, Jake Fraley. I was gonna. I kind of had like my top 3 like guys that I wrote down like before we got on today, and he was one of them. He's had 30 at bats. He's hitting over 300. He's got 10 RBIs, but the biggest concern for me is strikeouts. He's got 9 strikeouts, so basically
he's gonna strike out a lot.
One every 3 times he comes up to the plate, he's striking out. So I mean, but I think that's just kind of like the common casualty in today's MLB. Like like 1 out of 3 times you're striking out. Like that's just kind of what it is, you know.
Yeah.
You know, pitching's gotten to the point where it's so good where you don't really have a choice. You know, my only wish, my only fantasy is that like I could see these guys that like notoriously just didn't strike out go up against today's pitching and see what they did.
Yeah.
You know,
it would be interesting to see like a Ted Williams go up against Justin Verlander.
Right. I would love to see it. Like just simulated. Like just what like God, it would just be great to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the average fastball from the 1980s to today's game has gone up almost 7 miles an hour. That's a lot. You're talking about going from like 88 to 95 too. I'm not talking like or 88 to 94. I'm not talking about like 80 to 87. You're talking about high 80s to mid 90s. That's a big difference in time, and your frame of time to be able to swing the bat and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's hard. It's why you can't compare generations. It's why I can never put together an all-time team for every generation of baseball, because I have 100 players on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, completely understand that. So, I mean, there's going to be some questions. We obviously they haven't broken down the entire 25-man roster yet going into the season, but as far as the rotation is concerned, obviously we've got two top dogs going into the season. We've got Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green, and there's a few other question marks in that 5-man rotation. But as far as whether it's going to be Ashcraft, Weaver, Luis Cessa, like what are your thoughts on how the rotation is going to shape up moving into the regular season?
Yeah, so I think you're going to see your 1-2 punch. Obviously, as you said, it's Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo. The objective for both of those guys is to get at least 175 innings out of them. If you can get into 190 with a guy like Nick Lodolo, I think that's a success. You're not going to get that out of Hunter Green. He throws a lot of pitches. If anybody in the world thinks that he's going to be a 200-inning guy, he's not. He throws too hard. He works a lot of full counts. He gets a lot of guys to foul a lot of pitches off. He's a 5 1/3 to 6 1/3 inning guy. That's what you're going to get out of Hunter Green, and that's fine because he's going to get you 8 to 12 strikeouts a game. So you want that. That's your return on investment there. Third man in the rotation for me is Graham Ashcraft. I think that he's kind of of the trio. He's the one that still is the biggest question mark to most people, but I think he is the most consistent of the three of them in terms of pitch mix and his ability to attack the zone. He's a plus speed pitcher too, with a great slider and an above average cutter. I think that's going to help him. He had some troubles with attacking the inner part of the zone and getting strikes when he first came up for the Reds, but that's to be expected for any young pitcher making their major league debut. And then after that, man, you're talking. This is where the rotation of pitchers is going to kind of filter in this year. You're going to see Luis Cessa get the opportunity to start this year. You're going to see Colin Overton get the opportunity to start for the Reds this year. You're going to see Luke Weaver get the opportunity for the Reds. You're going to get Justin Dunn. You're going to get Brandon Williamson. It's going to be an
interesting rotation.
It's going to be probably 5 to 7 guys that you're going to see get starts. I think you'll see Raver San Martin get the opportunity to start again. I don't love that. I didn't love him as a starter last year for the Reds. I think that he's somebody that needs time and patience too, because it's just he's a left-handed non-fastball pitcher. That doesn't work for a starter. That's a good reliever. That's not a starter though. Yeah. I think you're going to see Chase Anderson. Chase Anderson's a guy that the Reds signed in the offseason for and as a non spring training. He's a guy that will more than likely at some point in time get the opportunity to get a start, because right now you don't know what Luke Weaver is going to look like because he's dealing with some forearm stiffness issues. Justin Dunn still is having some active shoulder issues. Luis Cessa is going to come back from the World Baseball Classic. He's probably going to rest a little bit. Then you'll towards the end of spring training. So yeah, it's kind of a revolving door, man. I think you're
thoughts on Connor Overton.
I don't think that he's not a bad starting pitcher, right? He came from Colorado. It's really hard to be a pitcher in Colorado, just in general.
Watch some of his highlights before we got on here, and he's got some good movement. He's got a decent pitch mix. He's got a decent two seam. He's got a nice changeup. He's got a good mix of pitches. I just from your perspective, obviously I take that for more validity than I can do watching it. So I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I think he's a good back end rotation guy for the circumstances that they're in. If you're waiting for pitching, right, where the Reds are probably 2 years away to wait for some of these pitchers, a year away for a couple years for another. He's a good guy to fill that gap for a season. It's kind of like, I'll make a football parallel. It's kind of like giving a tight end or a running back a 1-year deal after they're coming off a significant injury. If they pan out, they go and get a 3-year deal somewhere else. If they don't, they continue to fight their way through and get a 1-year deal over and over. Colin Overton is kind of on the same boat right now. Came up with the Reds last year, really struggled as a starter last year for the Reds. Horrible command issues. Got shelled pretty much every outing that he had, but his last 2 outings were successful. They were quality. There is something there to that. So I think that's a part of it. I think that if you look at a guy like Justin Dunn was a part of the Eugenio Suarez, Jesse Winker trade. At one point in time, he was the Mariners' second top pitching prospect. Nobody has any idea what he is, though, because he went from being a Mets top pitching prospect to a Mariners top pitching prospect, and now the Reds have him, and he hasn't started for the Reds yet because he's been injured the entire time. So I don't know what to expect of him. And I've only seen him pitch a couple times. I saw him pitch a couple times in Seattle. Very similar to Connor Overton. Not going to blow you away with the fastball, but has a good pitch mix. This back end of this rotation is not going to be consistent. For what you see in April will be different by June. That's kind of my prediction.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things with the Reds where, spring is great. There's always a lot of excitement that swirls around spring training, and then you get into the season and it's a slow start typically. And then we gradually, walk our way up to the All-Star break, and then we get super hot going to the All-Star break, and then we get extremely competitive, and then the conversation starts rising. Like, man, are the Reds really going to compete this year? This and that, yada yada yada. And then the All-Star break hits, and then we're all left just sitting here in our hands, like, okay, well, what are we going to do next year to combat this?
Yeah,
and that's just kind of how every year's been since I don't know 2005.
A lot. Most of
2011, maybe since we went to the NL, since we actually made it out of the wild card and actually went to the first round of the playoffs and they got smashed by San Francisco. It's probably the last time, so that feels like it's been forever, but it's been well over a decade.
It has. It's been 12. It's been 12 years since the Reds have won a playoff series.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs a couple times, but never won a series. But
yeah, I mean, our best showing since then was the pandemic season, which we had a nice show. We had a great team that year.
Dude, that rotation was so nasty.
That rotation was unbelievable. We just couldn't get it done offensive. The one time we couldn't show up on the offensive side was the year we had the best rotation that we'd had in at least 20 years, and we just couldn't do anything with it, and that was just so disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. At least since the Volquez, Cueto, Latos time of the early 2010s. And then, that was the same, obviously. So that was the first year of Mike Moustakas' contract too. So he was coming off of making a World Series run with the Royals and then playing for the Brewers and having I think he had a 30 home run season the year before the Reds signed him. And that didn't pan out. Eugenio Suarez was coming off a 50 home run season, hit 220 in that COVID year. Jesse Winker had a monster previously had a monster year, got injured. Joey Votto got injured. It was just it all kind of came to fruition, and then obviously we know what happened with the Braves series. They didn't score any runs.
Yeah.
So none against two rookie starters.
Yeah, but I mean the Braves were absolutely stacked.
Sure. No, it turned out that young pitching staff turns out to be the second best pitching staff in the NL East now. But, at that point in time, those guys were 21. When Ian Anderson pitched.
They were
when
young.
When Ian Anderson pitched against the Reds, he had just turned 21, and he threw a two-hitter.
2020 hindsight, though, like that's a
nasty rotation. Yeah.
That was an absolute deep rotation.
Yeah, you look at it 2 years later, and you're like, oh, yeah, I get it. I mean, obviously, the next year they come out and win the World Series, right? So it's like, oh, we lost to the team that ended up winning the World Series, but whatever.
It's still a tough pill to swallow.
It's tough. Yeah,
especially with that's one of the best Reds teams, top to bottom, like complete teams that you and I have seen in our lifetimes. We're like, man, like they should do something this year. They made the playoffs, like it wasn't even close, like they were in, and it wasn't like they made it by the skin of their teeth, like it just should have happened.
They clinched with 5 games to go against the Twins. They had
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Like we never seen that. That's the first time in Cincinnati sports history where they clinched with some time to kill.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, the rotation of Sonny Gray and Trevor Bauer and Tyler Mahle, that helped. The shortened season helped too. I mean, those guys got to pitch every 4 days basically.
Yeah, so I mean that was kind of the selling point there. Was it's like that half season is basically when the Reds are hitting their stride. So I'm like, man, the Reds really have a shot of the World Series this year.
They did. Because, I remember talking about it because we were
really
fairly.
They hit their stride about the midway point through the season, and I'm like, holy shit, the Reds might be able to win a World Series this year because this is when they get hot.
Yep.
And then there's usually that downtime with the All-Star break, but that's not happening this year. I'm like, holy shit, the Reds might win. And it just didn't happen. They just they expedited, they just fast forwarded, and then we're back where we are now.
Yeah. They rolled that VHS tape. They rewound that real quick, turned it over.
No, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, outside of Encarnacion and Jake Fraley, I think my my biggest person I'm looking forward to watching is Will Benson. He's stolen quite a few bases, and what I've seen over the course of the spring training is that stolen base percentage is way up. Number one. And number two, attempts are way up, but completion percentage, like there's only been 9 more people caught, and there's been over 100 more attempts on stolen bases this year. So I wonder, Todd, like what your thoughts are on because I know we were talking about the bases and how that size gap was going to change it, but do we expect it to change this much?
No. Well, I think base runners are just more aggressive too. This is the perfect opportunity to test the waters, right? In spring training, you're trying to figure out what your cadence is to steal a base, right? Because it's it's a 4.5 inch difference or whatever in between, what the bag, and you're trying to figure out what your first step is, when your first step is, how quick you can get to second base. So these guys they're just testing the waters. I think that number will slow down as we get into the season. Especially as the season progresses, those guys start losing their fresh legs a little bit too when you get after post All-Star break. But it's exactly. I think I assumed right that you would see a lot of stolen bases in spring training because it's new. Everybody tests a new rule and pushes it to its limits.
Absolutely.
Right? We do the same thing with the pitch clock, doing the same thing with the shift. People are still shifting outfilders, ridiculous.
Do the same thing with teachers in high school or college or whatever it is. Yeah,
you always test the waters on a new rule. But you'll see it subside some as the season goes in. I like the Will Benson call it. I think he's the guy that'll end up starting in center field every day for the Reds when the season's all said and done.
Yeah, no, I mean he's had a nice spring training so far. I mean, I think he's hitting somewhere in the realm of 400. He's not lighting up the stat sheet with RBIs or extra base hits, but he's getting on base. He's getting on base.
He's big too. Important. He's a big fella. He's 6'5". He's a big boy.
Oh shit, he's 6'5".
Yeah, that's why he's so effective at stealing bases. He's fast and he's 6'5".
Yeah, and he's long, obviously.
He's 6'5". He's 6'5", 240.
You have such an advantage if you're that quick, and because it's only 90 feet, and you got to think, if your body what's 6'5", that's 72, 70, 80 inches, so that's what 6, almost. You're basically, if you get the lead off, then you just need you don't have to run as far to steal the base, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you're talking about he's built like a tight end, dude. Next time if you watch him in game, look at how a jersey fits him. He's very broad. He's got big shoulders. He's got kind of a big chest. He's a big.
He's not like Joey Votto wearing the extra tight baseball pants. He actually fills them out.
He has a very similar build to Aaron Judge. That's now obviously Aaron Judge is 2 inches taller, 30 pounds heavier. I mean, a crazy athlete. But, Will Benson has a almost tight end-esque build as a center fielder. So he has really struggled when he's gotten to the pros, at least his time with the Guardians, with striking out and taking advantage of at-bats when he was on the Guardians. He got the opportunity multiple times, and he's a career sub-200 hitter. I mean, that's a small pool. That's probably about 95 plate appearances in his career, but he's struggled at the major league level with hitting. So again, it's a good example of a guy having a great spring training. He likely earns himself an opening day roster spot, and we'll see what he does in the month of April, right? He's probably not going to get daily. He's not going to get daily playing time. I'm assuming. We'll just fucking roll into it. Let's just talk about what the opening day roster is going to look like,
for sure,
right? So, in center field, I think you're going to see a combination of three guys this year over the course of the year. You're going to see TJ Friedel, who I believe will be their opening day starter in center field. You're going to see Nick Senzel, who is probably playing his last year of baseball for the Reds. As a fan, I feel bad. I feel bad saying this, but I hope so, because this experiment it's not an experiment. Nick Senzel was the best hitter in college baseball when the Reds drafted him, and he's had a really unfortunate time. He developed vertigo right after he got drafted. He's had multiple knee injuries. He's had multiple ankle injuries, and we know how that shit works, man. When you start injuring your ankles, it's just hard to bounce back from that. And he's had a neck and you sprinkle in neck and back injuries too. It's just hard to bounce back from those. So I think you'll see those two guys, and then Will Benson is the third guy. Will Benson is the guy I think will be starting in center field post All-Star break. So that'll be your kind of your 3-man rotation in center field. Yeah. And then I'll just come back to the infield. We were just talking about center fielder. So I think catching this year for the Reds, it's not going to be Tyler Stevenson as much as people think. It's going to be a combination of Kirk Casale and Luke Maile catching for the Reds. Kirk Casale, obviously a former Red, knows the locker room, knows the clubhouse, understands the structure of the Reds organization as a whole. So I think you're looking at a guy that understands the game. And then Luke Maile is a veteran catcher, a plus defensive catcher. He's actually a Northern Kentucky native. We played against each other multiple times growing up. He's our age. I graduated high school the same year we did from Covington Catholic, went to the University of Kentucky. But we'll see those guys play most of the catching time this year. My guess is Stevenson probably plays 70 games at catcher. First base this year will be Tyler Stevenson, Joey Votto, and Will Myers rotating there. Probably mostly Tyler Stevenson. I just think that's kind of going to be the direction that the Reds go with him.
So what are they going to do with Votto? I mean, he's obviously late in his contract. When he signed this contract years ago,
12 years ago.
This is a mistake. When he signed his contract, that $25 million deal for each year for what, 10, 12 years, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
$250 million over 12 years. It was a contract that we hadn't seen.
Yeah, it's post MVP Votto though. You got to remember that was post Votto having arguably one of the best years in career. It's the best year in the Reds' history of a hitter.
Not going to argue that, but for the Reds to throw that kind of money down, that was kind of unseen. Like
it was the first time ever.
We never seen anything like that in Cincinnati sports history, and for it to kind of now be at the point where it's coming to fruition, what are we kind of expecting at this point, and what's kind of his role moving into this season, maybe not even next season, but if there is a next season, like what are we looking forward to?
He's a DH. I want Joey Votto to hit I want him to hit 290. I want him to hit 20 home runs. I want him to knock in 80 to 100 runs. That's it. You don't need him at first base anymore. I think we've watched him over the last 3 years steadily decline in his because you got to remember Votto at one point in time was a Gold Glove first baseman too. That dude could pick anything from anywhere. In the last 3 years, last year I watched him 4 separate times just miss catching the ball at first base. It just doesn't happen. It's just a decline of a career. And I'm not saying that Joey Votto is bad now. I would never say that. Joey Votto is arguably a top 5 player for the history of the Reds. Arguably a top 10, a top 10 hitter in terms of just overall
execution.
execution and vigilance at the plate of all time as a hitter. One of the highest on-base slugging percentage combinations in the history of the game. I mean, similar to like a Ted Williams and a Willie Mays and a Babe Ruth. So that's a pretty significant group to be a part of. But yeah, I think the Reds, they're going to pay him this 22.5 this year. He's going to DH. I think the expectation the Reds should set with him right away is like, hey, we'll get you 50 games at first base, but we really need you to be in the lineup 150 times. And whatever, we just need you to accept that we're going to put you, you're not going to be in the field, but we need you to hit. We still need you to be in between.
We still need you to be a part of this team.
Yeah, we need you to be in between Jonathan India and Tyler Stevenson. We need somebody to move those guys, move guys over and knock guys in still. And I think that I know for a fact he still has the ability to do that. Before he got injured, he was starting to heat up. Right before he got injured, he was heating up. And, he's historically a slow starter. So everybody was like, oh, Votto's, this is it. This is the end of his career. He's hitting 220, and he hit 400 right before he tore his labrum. So he's right there. I think he's a guy that can hit 280, 290. And unfortunately, I think that this is his last year in a Reds uniform. This is the last year of his contract. Unless he wants to come back on a really, really cheap deal.
He's got to come back on a team-friendly deal. But yeah, no, I agree with you. We were even talking about it when we were kind of putting our lineups together last week. I wanted Joey Votto on my team, but I think he's here for more of a veteran perspective in a coaching avenue than he is for his actual ability to hop out there and get it done. And Joey Votto is one of the best hitters that you and I have ever seen in person. It is what it is.
Fact.
I don't think anybody can sit here and argue that point with us. He's patient. He knows what he's looking for, and he gets what he's looking for, and he will walk until he gets what he's looking for. And there's not a lot of players in today's game that will do that. Coming to the question, could Joey Votto manage the Reds one day? It's a good question. I don't think so. It's kind of coming back to that point that Justin had made earlier, where it's like, you've got players that just physically and mentally can do it, in their own eyes, and it doesn't necessarily translate to the masses. And I think that Joey Votto is one of those guys. It's such a niche thing for hitting and fielding. You've got to really have people that understand the game as a complete whole, as opposed to people that are just really good at executing it. Yeah. And I'm not saying that Votto doesn't understand the game and execute it well, because he does both of those things at a high level, but it's all about getting the quote unquote average Joe to be able to pick up on that and execute it as well. And when you're very good at your craft, it's sometimes tough to translate that to the average human. Yeah.
Joey Votto it would be a missed opportunity to not have him be a personality on TV as well. I think he would be
Tony
overall
Romo
more successful. I actually think that he would kind of lean more towards the more like the Charles Barkley side of baseball, where he's got a big personality. He's funny. He's really relatable. He's intelligent. He makes very valid points, but he's not somebody that's going to get taken super serious. But I would love to see him in that position, right? We don't know what the future of baseball broadcasting is going to look like with Bally Sports going completely bankrupt. Corey with the 50 stars. Thank you, Bubba. Appreciate you. But I think Votto is better suited to be calling a game rather than managing a game. Yeah, not to say that he can't, but I see him better in a suit and tie than I do continuing to wear the uniform.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Corey came in with another question. He's like, when does the Barry Larkin manager noise end?
Never. Reds. There are Reds fans that will always want Barry Larkin to manage the Reds, and it'll never happen. Barry Larkin, not a good commentator. Also probably wouldn't be a great manager, but I would love to have Barry Larkin around in a front office role, being a guy making player decisions for contracts and stuff like that, not managing them. I think that's where he's more better suited in terms of his baseball IQ.
Yeah, I think, love Barry as a player. I had his glove growing up. Like, I loved playing with it. It was a really nice glove that I had, down there, Waterworks in Fairfield. But no, I mean, it takes a really special person to be a manager and actually execute at that level. Transitioning from a player to a manager. And
Carl, thanks for making the stream.
What up, sir? But no, I mean, it's just a completely different ballgame at that point. Like, being a player and being a manager are two totally different things. And there are some people that can execute both. There are some people that are better at one than the other. We got a comment coming in. I think Votto in the box would be great. Having him around as a hitting coach could be nice, but he's not a back of the house guy. Get him out there. Will, thank you for swinging in, buddy.
Thank you, man. Yeah, he needs to be on TV. His talents would be wasted being a part of an organization and not being on television. I think that you look at a guy like a Harold Reynolds, for example, or like what Joe Morgan was. I think those guys, they had obviously Joe Morgan's a Hall of Famer, but they had great careers, and then they turned it into great careers as commentators. And Votto is intelligent enough and likable enough, and I don't want to say relatable because he's kind of a unique character, but he has the things, he has the stuff to be on TV daily in a suit and tie. So I would love to see that. I think it would be great for him to stick around since in that facet. But again, we don't know what the future of baseball broadcasting is going to look like with Bally Sports declaring bankruptcy. I mean, that's a whole different conversation for a whole other day.
I did not know that. So
yeah,
I mean, obviously they took over like Fox Sports, and like that was kind of how we consumed our Reds content. So, So if you have any knowledge on that, can you please speak to it? And why did they go bankrupt?
Well, so Fox made a deal with ESPN, Disney really, and a part of that deal was that they had to give up local broadcasting.
Okay.
And then so Bally bought the rights to local broadcasting. So like your Fox Sports Detroit, Ohio, all that stuff turned into Bally Sports insert region here, and it's not a profitable market. It's you're talking about covering maybe up to 3 teams in your region, but you're paying 3 sets of camera crews, 4 to 6 broadcasters, and there's not a lot of money to be made in local baseball that way. So Bally Sports declared bankruptcy. They're liquidating their assets, and it's basically an open market who's going to buy baseball to broadcast games. It's going to change a lot.
All right, let's take out some fucking loans and let's go call some baseball games. Boys.
I mean, it's going to change a lot because I think that for the generation prior to us, if they say, all right, well, MLB says, all right, well, we're just going to stream every game, they're not going to watch anymore. They're done.
Yeah.
If I go tell my dad that he has to sign up for MLB TV to watch the Reds, he's just not going to watch the Reds.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
it's easier for us to do it because we're already doing it.
What's the point in us not like? What's the point in us watching the Reds when they suck anyway?
Yeah,
that's just my personal comments on it. Like you got guys like Phil Castellini who are saying, "Hey, fuck the Reds. Like, I don't give a shit about them, and I own them. Like, why would we watch them? Why would fans spend the extra dollar to download the apps or whatever's going on to watch these guys?" And Corey coming with a couple comments here. We can all agree that Joey Votto's a Hall of Famer, of course.
Yes.
I don't think that's an argument in any way, shape, or form. He said the only thing Bally is hanging on right now is hockey. They also broadcast the Wings and the Blue Jackets games.
And don't forget basketball too.
Blue.
Don't forget basketball too, man. You're talking about talking about a network that does Cavs games, Bucks games, Pistons games, Timberwolves content. Yeah. So and for these small market franchises that rely on Bally to broadcast, they're eight, for baseball, they're 81 home games a year, or, up to 100. I think the Bally broadcasted 115 Reds games last year. They rely on that, man. That's their only source to get content out. And, the advertising that happens inside a stadium doesn't translate to the advertising dollars that these guys get. Bally only gets their advertising from commercials, right? And then basically they were taking that money that they were getting for advertising through commercials and then funneling into these programs. And guys' paychecks were getting bounced. Like, that's how bad it's got.
Jesus.
So, yeah. So it sucks. I'm actually really nervous for the history of for the future of watching baseball. I don't know how that's going to happen or what that's going to look like, but it's going to change. I really fear that ESPN/Disney, whatever, is just going to buy it all up and they're just going to control it. And then it's going to just become a thing you have to pay for.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very real possibility.
And MLB Network is pulling off all the streaming services. You can only get MLB Network if you pay for it or if you have cable.
That's tough, man. It also kind of doubles back to that point, where it's like, how is the MLB marketing their content, and how are they going to continue to grow their platform if they continue to restrict the way that it's viewed? And it's Corey came in with a couple comments. Most Cleveland fans hate Bally. Aaron would complain about needing a subscription to watch the Cavs. Honestly, it's going to create a better platform for fans that really enjoy watching hockey on ESPN Plus and getting almost every game.
Sure, for fans in our age range, though. But what about for the fans that are older than us? Not a lot of those people are buying ESPN Plus.
I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
All right. So I think that's my thing, or the thing that I'm kind of concerned about when I look at what the impact has on Bally Sports is it's really more of we're okay with watching it, right? We're okay with ingesting things through streaming platforms and stuff like that. But time moves on, but those people still pay their money to watch sports too. And they're still the people that are watching baseball at least for right now is a generation older than us. And we've already talked about, baseball having a hard enough time as it is gathering in more fans for the younger age, but it's definitely going to be a challenge to the older generation. But I don't want to, I agree time moves on, but I don't discount that there's still a whole generation of people that are still watching the game. And it's much easier for us to acclimate to new forms of watching a game than it is for them. That's my point.
No, I mean, that makes complete sense. Bobby with the fastest bathroom break ever. Yeah, I tried to be quick, man. I was trying to hold it as long as I could. And it just got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had to take a quick break. But no, I mean, it's been a wonderful episode so far. Corey, appreciate swinging through and giving us a ton of content. Talk about Todd. What else do you have for us this evening, sir?
Yeah, man, I'll round up the lineup, and then we can probably we can call it we can talk a little about free agency if you want, or we can call it a podcast. So we got to Jonathan India at second base. Shortstop this year is going to be a rotation of fourth highest paid player, utility infielder Kevin Newman and Jose Barrero. I'm really interested to see if Barrero gets consistent at bats and what he could do with those at bats, because he's really sucked at hitting for the last 2 years when he's gotten his opportunity.
Barrero has not been good.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard for me to, because I don't know if you remember the COVID year when he came up, he was kind of lights out, and then but also so was Aquino for a month. So the things have caught up to them. So third base, my pick for NL Rookie of the Year, Spencer Steer. I'm actually really, really excited to watch this dude. I think this guy actually has the ability to be a 30-30 guy, plus power, above average glove. Came up for the Reds last year in September. Was a part of one of the Twins of the Twins trade for Tyler Mahle, and came in last year and actually won them a couple games at the end of the year. Actually won them the last game of the year in the bottom of the ninth. So I'm actually really excited to watch him get the opportunity to play 150 games and get some at bats and hopefully beat. I mean, I would love for 2 out of 3 years to be the Rookie of the Year come from Cincinnati. Because there's not a lot for us to hang our hat on right now, and it would be pretty dope for that to come from him.
Yeah, I mean, from everything I read, and what he said, kind of when he came up last season, going into this season, is he said that he was trying to do too much, when he first came up last season, and this year he's going to try to dial it back a little bit and be a little bit more, poised and centered, on his approach to the game, which can't really hurt. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, I like him a lot, man. I think he has a nice, really soft, quick swing. He's excellent at inside outing fastballs, which when you get into a slump, the best thing you could do is just put bat on the ball and see what happens. So that's a good skill set to have. But rounding out the outfield, I talked about center field already. Left field will be Jake Fraley. I think this will be the other 30 home run hitter for the Reds this year, but also look for him to strike out about 160 times. That's what he is as a hitter. He's an all or nothing guy. Consistently, the Reds have done that in left field anyway with left-handed bats. If we all remember what Adam Dunn was able to do in his time in Cincinnati. But so Jake Fraley will be that guy for the Reds this year. I look forward to seeing him get some serious at bats. And then right field is going to be a combination of TJ Friedel, Will Myers, Will Benson. That's going to be the spot, kind of like how it's been the last 2 years, where it's going to be a revolving door of players. That's where guys that get the opportunity to call up, they're going to get some chances out in left and right field to get some at bats. They signed Nick Solak in the offseason. Did not make the major league roster, but I could see a player going down, him coming up. I haven't even talked about Chad Pender yet. He's another guy the Reds signed from Oakland. They'll very likely bring him. He'll be in to play, every third day for a rest guy. So look for him to play some middle infield, third base, and some right field. But it's, as I've said, this is not a year to look forward to much for the Reds. I'm excited. I'm knocking on wood a lot for Tyler Stevenson to be healthy for the entire season. That's a guy that I think has the real opportunity to start having some conversations about getting into an MVP race for what he's able to do offensively and defensively. I want Jonathan India to bounce back and have a good year. And most importantly, I want Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green to pan out.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if the Reds are going to rebuild, baseball starts with pitching, right? And if Lodolo, Hunter Green, and Graham Ashcraft can figure it out, and if they can combine and again, I said Hunter Green's not going to give you a ton of innings, but if they can average each of them around 165 innings this year and give you, 12 to 15 quality starts apiece, that's kind of the biggest win that you can have for the Reds this year. Everything else is going to be it's a ton of trial and error. Don't expect Will Myers, Kevin Newman, Chad Pender, Volser. Don't expect those guys to be on the Reds roster after the trade deadline. Will Myers is fighting for an opportunity similar to how the Reds acquired Tommy Pham last year. Will Myers is really in the same boat in his career where he needs a half of a season to put together good numbers so he can get paid again. It worked out really nice for Brandon Drury. Obviously, we saw what he was able to do with the chance to play every day for the Reds. Kevin Newman's in the same boat. He needs a chance to play second or third base somewhere. He's going to come out swinging the bat. So it's going to be a revolving door. I think we ended up seeing on the Reds 26-man roster, I believe there were 47 different players last year. Look for that number to actually increase this year. I think they actually touch 50 players this year. They get an opportunity during the 26-man roster time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Will coming in with a good question here. Any guesses on who our biggest bust may be as a starter this year? I'm going to leave it to two guys. I'm going to leave that to Luis Cessa or Luke Weaver, just because of durability issues. I don't see either of these guys. One of these guys is not going to make the whole season. With quality starts, and I think one of the biggest issues that we're going to see this year from our rotation is the fact that we're not able to eat innings.
Yeah, the bullpen's not.
It's going to be the fact that we're not going to be able to get deep into games, and the bullpen's weak. That's going to be the reason we lose a lot of games, is because we can't get deep into the game, and we're going to have to rely on the bullpen, and they're not strong. So
shit, we didn't even talk about the bullpen. That's worse, right? Like that to me, that's the biggest area of opportunity. Usually in a bullpen, you at least have 3 guys that you can rely on, and the Reds really have one, and it's Alexis Diaz. That's it. And even then, it took him 2/3 of the year last year to get comfortable. And the guy had 24 saves. He had for a rookie closer, he had a good year. I don't want to discount what he was able to do, but no TJ Antone again. That's going to really suck. I don't even know if we'll see him at all this year. He had a huge step back in his rehabilitation, had to have another surgery, so that sucks. He was a big piece of that 2020 year too. His ability to come out of the bullpen and literally just lock it down. Lucas Sims, I'm not 100% sold on still. I think he's had his opportunities. He's shown that he can be really great. And then he throws that, he has a really good sinking fastball, but the problem with him is that he elevates it. And then that sinking fastball starts at the shoulders and ends at the chest. And that turns into a 400-foot home run. He had a lot of problems with that last year. He had some injuries too. Tony Santillan's a guy that I like out of the Reds bullpen. I think he's a good long reliever. I expect him to get some spot starts this year too. I talked about Reaver San Martin. He is what he is. He's a left-handed specialist in a world where you can't have specialist pitchers anymore because everybody has to pitch a full inning. But he'll probably get some spot starts. Vladimir Gutierrez, when he comes off the 60-day IL, I imagine he'll get the opportunity to get back into the rotation again, just like he did last year. I'm telling you, dude, I was talking to my brother about this, and I said, expect the Reds to for the 40-man roster for the Reds to change at least 6 times during this year.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, because they're going to give everybody they can the opportunity. Brandon Williamson, another one of the Reds' top pitching prospects, expect him to get at least 5 starts this year. Andrew Abbott will get the opportunity to start a couple times this year. Fernando Cruz is an older minor league guy. He'll probably get the opportunity to pitch. It's going to be a lot of guys that nobody's ever heard of. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Unless you're following the Reds, you're going to turn them on a Wednesday afternoon at 1:00, and you're going to be like, I don't know 5 of the 9 guys that are on the field, and I've never seen this pitcher before in my life. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the case for a lot of small market teams, and as much as people want to say San Diego is a small market team, they are not.
They put big money into that franchise the last 4 years. They've definitely. I mean, look at the contract.
They used to be a small market team, and they are now not. They are no longer in that same category.
San Diego's a great city. It should be the perfect city for baseball. It's the perfect baseball weather for 11 of the 12 months of the year.
Yeah, I mean the fact that place has not been a mecca for baseball in the last decade has been a travesty because it's San Diego. In German, it means a whale's vagina.
Well, they were 2 outs away from making the World Series, so
they were.
They could have been. They could have been there if the Phillies wouldn't have made that big push. But yeah, no, it's the Reds are going to be bad. That's all.
Yeah, overall prognosis this year, Reds are not going to be great. It's more of a rebuild year. There's a lot of young talent coming up, through the pipeline, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deploy it this year. I would imagine it's not going to be anything that we're going to be excited about until after the All-Star break or moving into the September call-ups. But, at the end of the day, we know what to expect this year, so it's not as much of a letdown as it was in previous years where we were expecting to be somewhat decent, and there's just nothing to come of it. So, we kind of have year. Yeah. Last year we were expecting to be somewhat good, and we were god awful, and At least this year we have some sort of expectation. It's going to be, decent, at most. But
it's definitely a hard reset for Cincinnati.
For sure.
I don't even know if next year will be the 2024 season will be a good one, because a lot of these position guys are still a year away, and then it's going to take them a year to develop, and not all these rookies are going to hit at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like there's if anybody can tell me a team that had at least 5 rookies, because that's probably what happens for the Reds of the 24 season, that start and they make the playoffs, please tell me, because I don't know if I've ever seen it or heard of it before.
It'll be a tall task.
It will be a tall task. That's right.
But obviously we've talked enough about the Reds. We're about an hour 15 in. Let's spend the last little bit of this kind of getting into the NFL free agency and kind of recapping everything that's happened over the last couple of days.
Boy,
it's been busy.
It's been saucy.
Busy.
Yeah, I mean, even in the last couple of hours, some stuff rolling in here in terms of free agency. I apologize. I paused for a second when we were talking some Reds there, because I saw the Bengals signed a safety, so I had to double check that real quick, make sure all the things were good there. Let's see. To me, obviously, the Bears had the most space to make rooms in terms of salary cap going into this offseason. Made a splash a week ago with the monster trade to get to the number 1 overall pick. Didn't really give – I say monster trade. They didn't give up a ton to get there. I think that's a pretty fair trade to get a number 1 spot, or give up the 1 spot to go to 9. Obviously they get the 9th pick overall. 61, 24, 2024 first round, 2025 second round, and of course DJ Moore. So the Bears actually have a true number 1 wide receiver. Justin Fields has the opportunity to throw the ball to somebody that's not named Chase Claypool.
Bears have done a really nice job.
Yeah. So as of 7:35, here's who they've signed so far. Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills, monster signing. TJ Edwards,
$72 million.
Yep, TJ Edwards, signed him to a 3-year, $19.5 million deal. Got Nate Davis for 3 years, $30 million. Obviously we just talked about the first round pick. Signed Deonta Foreman for a 1-year, $3 million deal. I think that's a money move for Chicago, with David Montgomery going to the Lions. With that, they signed former Seattle Seahawk Travis Homer to a 2-year, $4.5 million deal. So now they have a 3 running back room. They signed PJ Walker to a 2-year deal, which I think is for a backup quarterback for Justin Fields. That's a good move. You're getting a guy that's a kind of a similar version of Justin Fields, right? You're not having to completely bend the offense when PJ Walker comes in, because PJ Walker is also a mobile quarterback who throws better out of the pocket. They also signed Robert Tonyan today.
They did.
That's not a bad move. So now you have at least 4. You have DJ Moore, you have Mooney, you have Cole Kmet, and you have Robert Tonyan. And now in your backfield, you have Khalil Herbert, Deonta Foreman, and Travis Homer.
Yeah.
So you have got – the offensive weapons are there, and they've shored up a little bit of that offensive line. I could see them going offensive for a tackle at 9 now. I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted Paris Johnson from Ohio State there. But, Bears – money so far in free agency, definitely taking advantage of the extra dollars and cents that
Bears did a great job. I'll say the Bengals did a great job. They haven't signed a ton, but the Bengals done a nice job. They signed. They literally shored up that left side of the line. Signed Orlando Brown, 4 years,
and they signed
60.
And they signed Cody Ford today too.
They also got Cody Ford today, which is not even updated on this website because they're so far behind.
I got Cody Ford on a 1-year deal. He's a depth piece for the offensive line. That was a real opportunity for the Bengals.
He's great if somebody goes down. Bengals did a really nice job. Cowboys, obviously, one of my biggest surprises. They actually finally let go of Zeke.
They had to, dude. That contract sucks.
Which was, I was just waiting for it at this point, but like they finally did it, which was okay. Like, okay, everybody was expecting it, but we're actually kind of shocked that you actually pulled the trigger this early.
Contract sucks.
Lions have done a lot of nice things. The Giants
Lions have had an excellent.
Lions have had an excellent offseason. Yeah. The Giants have had a nice offseason. Even the Raiders have had a really nice offseason.
Yeah.
Outside of losing Darren Waller to the Giants, which is probably their biggest mistake.
They wouldn't have been able to pay him, man.
They wouldn't have. The Giants have had a really nice offseason. I think they overpaid for Daniel Jones. They obviously tagged Barkley, which was a smart move. My Steelers haven't done a ton, but they got Larry Ogunjobi back, which I love that. I love that move for the Steelers. He's a great team.
It cheers up your interior defensive line, right? Like that's you get to keep him and Cam Hayward together, which I think
Hayward, and then we got Pat Peterson, that veteran presence in the defensive backfield, and love that. But the one defense that I'm absolutely terrified of is the fucking San Francisco 49ers. They signed Javon Hargrave. It's just like, what else do you need back there? What else can you do in that backfield to make it better? Like, I don't know.
Dude, it's unreal. They got to do something. I think their
defensive line is ridiculous.
I don't know if they have to restructure Bosa this year or next year.
It's going to be next year, but regardless, it's ridiculous.
Best of luck to anybody blocking that defensive line from San Francisco, because right after that you have to deal with Fred Warner. I don't know. That's it. I don't have to say much else. You got to deal with Fred Warner after that. So, yeah, I really like what the Lions have actually done so far in free agency, dude. I know it's a little salty for me to say this, but I'm big on the Cam Sutton move. Obviously, them going out and getting David Montgomery was big. Signed Emmanuel Mosley for a year from the 49ers. Got another interior defensive lineman, John Kaminsky, and then
they got a lot of good discounts, man. Their biggest free agent signing right now has been Cam Sutton, and that was a former Steeler, and that sucks because it's the same thing that the Bengals went and did. They went and signed Mike Hilton, and they're just stealing a ton of talent from Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh knows how to draft. They draft these fucking ballers, and they leave and go make tons of money on other teams. And it's like, if they would just stay, if the Steelers draft picks would just stay with the Steelers, they would win 5 championships. But obviously,
it's not how the NFL works anymore, man.
But obviously, it's not how it works anymore. They want to go make money, and I respect that, and I appreciate it. So, Cam Sutton, the highest paid free agent the Lions have signed. They got the linebacker Anzalone. He also has
re-signed him.
Deal. He's going to be great, and they obviously shore up the O line there with Matt Nelson. So, lots of movement in NFL free agency this year. I feel like every year we come up to the NFL free agency, it's just always more than we expect.
Yeah, it's been saucy this year. There was a lot of. Last year, it was a big wide receiver free agency time. There were a lot of guys restructuring and trading. This is kind of multifaceted. A lot of positional changes. Yeah. A ton of plus offensive linemen in this free agency class, which that always makes things interesting because if we've learned anything from the last 2 seasons is that you shore up your offensive line, and that should be your first priority to make your offense move better. I personally, I think that, for what the Bengals paid for Orlando Brown, I think it's funny that the Bengals are paying him less than what the Chiefs are paying Jawan Taylor and what Mike McGlinchey got from the Broncos. And Orlando Brown was the highest overall rated free agent that wasn't after Lamar Jackson.
So I have a question. He got 4 years and 64, but he also got a large amount guaranteed. Is that guaranteed amount on top of the 64, or is it a part of the 64?
It's a part of the 64, and then he gets a signing bonus, the $31 million signing bonus.
So he gets 30. So
that's what the Bengals
bonus. Did. So that signing bonus is on top of the contract.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not getting 64; he's getting 95.
Well,
But 31 million is a signing bonus. And then the 4 years is so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like I want to figure out like how much was a signing bonus because like he's basically like 4 years, 64 million for a star left tackle, seems cheap. So that's why I wanted to ask. I was like, is that like that 4 year 64? Is that his entire contract, or is that signing bonus like on top of that 64? So he's basically making 95 over the 4 years instead of 64 over the 4.
Well, so a signing bonus is really more like it's guaranteed money throughout the course of the contract, right?
Sure.
So it's not included. It's not like oh you got 64 million, now you're getting 95. It's like you get 64 million, 31's guaranteed. That's the signing bonus. It's usually either a lump sum or you could sprinkle it out throughout the duration of the contract itself.
Okay. So it's a part of the total contract, but that's the portion that's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Because I know salary cap in football is way different than it is in baseball, and there's a lot.
There is
more
none in baseball. That's what makes baseball wild.
That's what sucks about baseball, honestly. But yeah. So I mean, I know they throw a lot more of the cash up front, and kind of obviously we're getting kind of towards the back end. Kind of last big question before we kind of wrap this up. What do you see the Brown family doing with Joe Burrow's contract moving into the season or next season before we kind of wrap this up for the night?
Well, I think they extend him for 10 to 12 years, and he gets a very similar to Pat Mahomes contract, but it's similar to Pat Mahomes contract as well, where it's team friendly and it could be easily restructured. And there's, it's not, he's not going to ask for a Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract. He's going to take a contract where he can continue to maintain his assets. So I think it looks like it's probably 10 years, starts with a 3, right? So we'll see what that looks like. But I lost Bobby, so I think if we're gonna, with losing him, I think we're just gonna go ahead and wrap it up, y'all. Will ask a question. Can we agree Hurst is our biggest loss so far? I actually think Von Bell is the biggest loss so far for the Bengals. Oh, there he is. We got him back.
I have no idea what the hell just happened there.
No, I was going to say we can wrap it up, but Will asked a question. He asked if Hayden Hurst was the biggest loss so far, and I actually think that Von Bell is the bigger loss between the two of them.
Oh, for sure.
Of players who have signed elsewhere, I guess I should say.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Hayden Hurst made me a lot of money as a Cincinnati Bengal tight end because Joe Burrow found him in the end zone quite a bit. But I think the defensive loss there of Von Bell is definitely the more monumental impact.
That's definitely the most surprised I was out of anyone, too. I thought for sure the Bengals would lock Von Bell back in. But I think the thing Von Bell does really well that people maybe just don't see it as much is that he's just so good in the open field. He's a good open field tackler. He's very good at creating, at capitalizing on a blitz or making a blitz matter, right? There's a lot of Mike Hilton gets in the backfield a lot because of their exchange in the secondary. But yeah, here's the thing: losing a guy like Hayden Hurst sucks because he's easy to like.
He's such a good team guy.
He has a great story. He's a hard worker. Yeah, he's a hard worker. It's been probably since I would say since Tyler Eifert that we had a sure-handed wide receiver or a sure-handed tight end. Excuse me.
I mean, he reminds me of a Heath Miller. Like as a Steelers fan, it's like you're shouting Heath, and then as a Bengals fan, you're shouting pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I like Hayden Hurst, but the good thing is that the Bengals offense doesn't really revolve around having Hayden Hurst in it.
Yeah.
Right. You can plug in a rookie tight end or a veteran minimum tight end, and they'll do pretty much the same exact thing Hayden Hurst was able to do. Now, Hayden Hurst is also very athletic too. Like his ability to hurdle and make those exchanges makes him unique. But tight ends are such a funny position in the NFL that losing him doesn't hurt me as much as losing Von Bell. And, obviously losing Jesse Bates, I expected that for 2 years. I'm happy that he was able to get that fucking monster in Atlanta. They paid him a very handsome amount of money to go there and do the damn thing. So
paid him.
Good for him for getting that money. I'm not going to fault a guy for chasing money. I'm really not. Jesse Bates was, a guy that went through the worst and the best, and it sucks when you lose a veteran that's been through the experience. But at the end of the day, football is business. Business means money. So take the money and run. I'm happy for Jesse Bates for getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta really has done a nice job at shoring up their offensive and defensive sides of the ball, with the exception of losing, a key offensive aspect. But at the end of the day, I think overall they've done a nice job this offseason.
Yeah, I mean they go out and get John Smith. They've got a couple of defensive linemen, linebackers, some secondary help. I mean, I got a backup for Desmond Ridder for the time being, going out and getting Taylor Heineke. So yeah, if Desmond Ridder doesn't pan out, if the offense doesn't work for him,
think Taylor Heineke starts by the end of the season?
No, I actually think Desmond Ridder is going to figure it out at the NFL level. I think he'll actually put together a pretty decent season this year. I don't expect him to. He's not going to, blow up the stat board, but I think people will be surprised at what Desmond Ridder. I mean, Corey and I have talked about that pretty immensely. Like, people will be surprised what Desmond Ridder is able to do in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I mean, I liked him as a college quarterback. I think, Ohio quarterbacks don't typically have a good track record, just in general. Anybody from Ohio, whether it's OSU or Cincinnati or anybody north. But I think the best Ohio quarterback that's done in the last 3 decades has been Roethlisberger out of Miami. But
yeah, I wouldn't argue that. Nobody from Ohio State's put together a Super Bowl as a quarterback.
I don't think he can, but that's
a fact. I can't argue that.
Yeah. I don't think you can argue it, but at the end of the day, one Super Bowl winners shouldn't, I don't know. I feel like Ohio's better than that. I feel like there's a lot more talent in this state than is given credit for, and the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is the best quarterback to come out of this state since the culmination of the 2000s is kind of a travesty.
Man, Ohio State's offense wasn't an NFL pro style offense for a long time. It was just a running. It's a place where running backs go to be exceptional and then get drafted. And now it's turned into a place where wide receivers go and become exceptional and get drafted. This is going to be the first time in a long time. I don't know the history of it. I'm not going to sit here and try to name a date, but Ohio State's going to have 2 quarterbacks back to back drafted in the first round, and I don't know if I've ever made that a statement as an adult following football.
Well, I will say, I think the big thing is that they haven't had 2 quarterbacks drafted, but man, there's a lot of talent there at that wide receiver core, and Aaron Rodgers was getting a lot of shit for bringing his list of people to New York. But he's going to have Garrett Wilson and just so many other young weapons, Breece Hall, like things that the Packers didn't have. And it's honestly going to be terrifying to see Aaron Rodgers with these young weapons and seeing what he can do with it, because Green Bay, as great as they've been as a franchise over the last 20, 30 years, they have not had the young talent that New York has. And it's going to be interesting to see if Aaron Rodgers can actually make something of it, or if he's just going to die off with it and be a irrelevant piece of shit.
I mean like Brett Favre did when he went to New York.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking like Green Bay quarterbacks just kind of fade off. Except Aaron Rodgers skipped the Minnesota step and just went straight to New York.
Yeah, he was too busy doing darkness retreats in Iowa with ayahuasca to go to Minnesota. They don't offer that in the Twin Cities. They might offer that in New York though.
Yeah, true. True.
All right, man. That's a podcast, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a show. Chat, we appreciate everybody swinging out. You guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Tomorrow is Friday. Enjoy it. We'll be back with you Wednesday, Corey and Aaron, with our segment of the Generous Degenerates. We'll have a ton to talk about with the March Madness tournament coming to fruition. Obviously, we got the golf coming out, so make sure you guys bring your money. They're going to be talking all kinds of gambling, and make sure that you're there because you'll win some if you actually listen to what they have to say. So outside of that, for Todd, Bobby, this is Rally Towel Sports. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day.